April 1942. The mountains of northern Iran. A refugee convoy of Polish soldiers winds its way through rocky terrain, exhausted, displaced, and uncertain of what tomorrow will bring. These men are survivors of Soviet labor camps, freed after Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union forced Stalin to release Polish prisoners and allow them to form a fighting force in exile. They have walked through hell, seen their country carved up by two totalitarian powers, watched their families disappear into the frozen gulags of Siberia. Now they are making their way south, through Persia, toward British-held territory, where they hope to regroup and continue the fight against the Axis. Among them is a young soldier named Peter Prentice. He is thin, tired like all the others. But on this day, something unusual catches his eye. A local Iranian boy approaches the convoy, holding something small and brown in his arms. At first glance, it looks like a dog. But as Peter gets closer, he realizes it is a bear cub. Tiny, barely a few weeks old, its eyes still closed, its fur matted and dirty. The boy's story is simple and heartbreaking. He found the cub next to its dead mother, likely killed by hunters. He has been trying to feed it, but he has no milk, no resources. He offers to sell the cub to the soldiers for a few cans of food and a pocket knife. Peter and his comrades look at one another. They have almost nothing. Food is scarce. Water is rationed. They are soldiers in exile, barely holding themselves together. The logical decision would be to refuse. But war does strange things to men. It strips them of everything familiar, everything normal. And sometimes in the middle of that emptiness, something small and helpless becomes a lifeline. They agree. They trade their rations for the cub. They wrap him in a blanket, tuck him into a rucksack, and name him Voytek. In Polish, it means he who enjoys war or smiling warrior. It is a name given with irony, with hope, with the faint memory of a world where such names meant something other than survival. No one knows it yet, but this tiny, helpless bear will become one of the most famous soldiers of World War II. At first, Voytek is just a mascot. The soldiers feed him with condensed milk from an old vodka bottle. They take turns carrying him when the convoy stops to rest. He is weak, malnourished, and constantly hungry. But he is also curious, playful, stubborn. He nuzzles into their laps, climbs onto their shoulders, and makes soft grunting sounds that, somehow, make the war feel a little less suffocating. For men who have lost everything, this small creature becomes something to care for, something to protect, something that still needs them. The convoy continues south, through the deserts of Iraq, into Palestine, and eventually to Egypt. Voytek grows quickly. Syrian brown bears, even in captivity, are large animals. By the time the Polish II Corps reaches Egypt, Voytek is no longer a cub. He is a juvenile bear, weighing over 100 pounds, strong, energetic, and increasingly difficult to control. He wrestles with the soldiers. He learns to open supply tents and steal food. He drinks beer, eats cigarettes, and once causes a minor panic when he corners a suspected spy in a bathhouse. The man, terrified, confesses immediately. The soldiers laugh. Voytek has made his first arrest. But this is not a story about a pet. This is a story about a soldier. In 1943, the Polish II Corps is preparing to move to Italy. The British Eighth Army is planning a major offensive to break through the German defensive line, known as the Winter Line. The most fortified and brutal point of that line is a hilltop monastery called Monte Cassino. The Allies have tried to take it multiple times. They have failed. Thousands have died on its slopes. Now the Poles are being asked to try again, and they are bringing Voytek with them. There is a problem, though. British military regulations do not allow mascots or pets on transport ships. The Polish soldiers are told that Voytek cannot come. For these men, this is unacceptable. Voytek is not a mascot. He is one of them. So they find a solution. They officially enlist him in the Polish army. He is given a serial number, a rank, and a pay book. He becomes a soldier of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. His name appears on the roster. He is assigned rations. He is, on paper and in practice, a member of the military. The British authorities, baffled but unable to argue. With official paperwork, allow him to board. Voytek arrives in Italy in early 1944. The Polish II Corps is stationed south of Monte Cassino, preparing for what will be one of the bloodiest battles of the Italian campaign. The monastery sits atop a steep, rocky hill, surrounded by minefields, machine gun nests, and entrenched German positions. The valley below is a killing field. The Allies have already lost thousands trying to take it. Now it is Poland's turn. The soldiers of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company have a critical job. They are responsible for transporting ammunition from the rear supply lines to the artillery positions on the front. This means carrying heavy wooden crates filled with artillery shells, often under fire, up steep and narrow mountain paths. It is exhausting, dangerous work. The crates weigh up to 100 pounds each. The men are already tired, underfed, and carrying the weight of years in exile. And then one day Voytek starts helping. It begins almost by accident. The soldiers are unloading crates from a supply truck, stacking them, preparing to carry them forward. Voytek, now a fully grown bear weighing over 500 pounds, watches them with his dark, intelligent eyes. He has always been curious. He has always mimicked the soldiers. He watches them smoke, so he learns to hold cigarettes in his mouth. He watches them drink, so he learns to open bottles. And now he watches them carry crates. One of the soldiers, probably as a joke, hands him a crate. Voytek grips it in his massive paws. He holds it against his chest, just like the men do. And then slowly, carefully, he begins to walk. The soldiers stare. At first, they think it is a fluke. But Voytek does it again and again. He carries the crates from the truck to the stack. He does not drop them. He does not break them. He simply carries them, one after another, with the same steady rhythm as the men around him. He does not understand artillery. He does not understand war. But he understands work. He understands routine. And he understands that his friends need help. Word spreads quickly. Officers come to see for themselves. Photographers arrive. Journalists write articles. But for the men of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company, Voytek's contribution is not a curiosity. It is real. He is carrying ammunition. He is doing the work of soldier. And during the brutal days of the Battle of Monte Cassino, that work saves lives. The battle begins on May 11, 1944. The Poles attack at night, moving up the slopes under heavy fire. German artillery rains down on them. Machine guns sweep the hillsides. Minefields explode beneath their feet. The Poles fight with desperation and fury. This is not just another battle. For them, Monte Cassino is personal. Poland has been occupied, betrayed, erased from the map. This monastery, this hill, is a chance to prove that Poland still exists. That Polish soldiers still fight. The artillery barrage is constant. The guns never stop. And behind the lines, the supply chain never stops. Voytek works alongside his company, carrying shells, moving crates, never flinching at the sound of explosions. He does not run. He does not hide. He stays with his men. Some soldiers later recall that his presence alone is calming. In the chaos, in the noise, in the terror, there's something surreal and grounding about seeing a bear calmly doing his job. On May 18th, after days of brutal fighting, the Poles reach the top. They raise the Polish flag over the ruins of Monte Cassino. The monastery is taken. The winter line is broken. The cost is staggering. Over 900 Polish soldiers are dead. Thousands more are wounded. But they have done what no one else could. And Voytek was there. After the battle, the 22nd Artillery Supply Company adopts a new emblem. It shows a bear carrying an artillery shell. The image is sewn onto their uniforms, painted onto their vehicles. It becomes their identity. Voytek is no longer just a bear. He is a symbol, a reminder of what they endured, a reminder that even in war, there is loyalty, humor, and something worth protecting. The war continues. Voytek and the Polish II Corps move north through Italy. They fight at Ancona at Bologna. They see more death, more destruction. But Voytek remains. He sleeps in the soldiers' tents. He eats with them. He wrestles with them when they need to laugh. He remains a constant in a world that is anything but. Then, in May 1945, the war in Europe ends. Germany surrenders. The guns fall silent. But for the Polish soldiers, there is no victory parade. There is no going home. Poland is now behind the Iron Curtain, occupied by the Soviet Union. The government they served is in exile. The country they fought for is no longer theirs. Many of the soldiers choose not to return. They are men without a country. The 22nd Artillery Supply Company is demobilized. The soldiers scatter. Some go to Britain, some to Canada, some to the United States. And Voytek? He is sent to Scotland. In November 1947, Voytek arrives at the Edinburgh Zoo. He is no longer a soldier. He is no longer carrying shells or sleeping in tents. He is a zoo animal now, living in a concrete enclosure, far from the mountains of Italy, far from the men who raised him. It is a strange, quiet ending for a bear who lived through war. But the soldiers do not forget him. Polish veterans living in Scotland visit him regularly. They bring him cigarettes, which he still holds in his mouth, but no longer lights. They bring him bottles of beer which he drinks with the same enthusiasm he had in the camps. They wrestle with him through the bars. They speak to him in Polish. And Voytek remembers. When he hears Polish voices, he stands on his hind legs. He raises his paws. He responds. He remembers. For the people of Edinburgh, Voytek becomes a local celebrity. Children visit him. Newspapers write about him. He is gentle, playful, beloved. But those who knew him during the war see something else. They see a soldier who has been retired. A comrade who has been left behind. Voytek lives at the Edinburgh Zoo for 16 years. He is well cared for. The zookeepers grow fond of him. Visitors adore him. But there is something bittersweet about his life there. He is safe. He is fed. He is comfortable. But he is also alone. There are no other Syrian brown bears at the zoo. There are no soldiers to wrestle with, no tents to sleep in, no convoys to follow. He is a soldier without a war, a bear without a purpose. The Polish veterans continue to visit. Some bring their children. Some bring their grandchildren. They tell the story of Monte Cassino. They tell the story of the long march through Iran, the nights in the desert, the sound of artillery, the smell of gunpowder. They tell the story of a bear who carried shells, who never ran, who stayed with them when the world fell apart. And Voytek listens. He presses his massive body against the bars. He reaches out with his paws. He remembers. Visitors who do not know the story see a gentle giant, a curious bear, who stands on his hind legs and seems to wave. But the veterans see something different. They see a fellow soldier. They see a brother in arms. And when they leave, some of them cry. Voytek dies on December 2nd, 1963. He is 21 years old, which is a respectable age for a bear in captivity. The cause of death is not dramatic. He simply grows old. His body weakens. His movements slow. One morning, the zookeepers find him lying peacefully in his enclosure. He is gone. The news spreads quickly. Obituaries appear in British and Polish newspapers. Veterans across Scotland mourn. The BBC reports his death. For a brief moment, the world remembers the bear who went to war. But then, as always, the world moves on. Voytek is buried quietly. There is no military funeral, no flag-draped coffin, no 21-gun salute. He is a bear after all. Just a bear. But the soldiers never forget. In the years that follow, efforts are made to preserve Voytek's memory. Books are written. Documentaries are filmed. Statues are proposed. And slowly, the story begins to spread beyond the Polish community. People in Britain, in Poland, in Canada, in the United States begin to learn about the bear who became a soldier. They learn about Monte Cassino. They learn about the Polish II Corps. They learn about men who fought for a country that no longer existed, who carried their identity not in passports or borders, but in their hearts. In 2015, a bronze statue of Voytek is unveiled in Edinburgh's Prince's Street Gardens. The statue shows him standing upright, carrying an artillery shell, just as he did in Italy. Polish and Scottish officials attend the ceremony. Veterans, now elderly, stand in silence. Some salute. The statue becomes a pilgrimage site. Polish tourists visit it. British schoolchildren learn about it. It is no longer just a monument to a bear. It is a monument to friendship, to resilience, to the bonds forged in war. Another memorial is erected in Krakow, Poland. Another in London. Another in Canada. Each one tells the same story. Each one honors the same bear. And each one reminds us that war is not just about generals and strategies, about tanks and airplanes. It is about people. And sometimes it is about the animals who stood beside them. Voytek's story raises questions. Why does a bear matter? Why does this story endure? In a war that killed tens of millions, why do we remember a single animal? The answer is not simple. Part of it is novelty. A bear carrying artillery shells is strange, unusual, memorable. But there is something deeper. Voytek represents something that war often destroys: innocence, loyalty, companionship. He was not a weapon. He was not trained to kill. He was simply there. He was a presence that reminded soldiers of a world beyond the war. A world where creatures could be playful, where relationships could be simple, where trust did not have to be earned with blood. For the men of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company, Voytek was more than a mascot. He was a living reminder of their humanity. In a world that demanded they become killers, Voytek allowed them to remain caretakers. In a world that took everything from them, Voytek gave them something to protect. And in a world that told them they were nothing, Voytek treated them like family. That is why his story endures. Today, Voytek is remembered not just as a curiosity, but as a symbol. He appears in history books, in military museums, in commemorations of the Polish contribution to World War II. His image is still worn by veterans of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company and their descendants. His story is taught in schools. And every year on the anniversary of the Battle of Monte Cassino, his name is spoken alongside the names of the soldiers who fought there. There is no way to know what Voytek understood. Bears are intelligent, but they are not human. He did not understand nations or ideologies. He did not understand why men were killing each other on a hilltop in Italy. He did not understand exile or occupation or the fall of empires. But he understood his friends. He understood the men who fed him, who played with him, who needed him. And he stayed with them. That is enough. In the end, Voytek's story is not about a bear. It is about the people who loved him. It is about soldiers who, in the middle of unimaginable loss, chose to carry a bear cub through a war. It is about men who enlisted an animal into their ranks, not as a joke, but as an act of defiance against the inhumanity around them. It is about a bond that transcended species, language, and logic. It is about the stubborn insistence, even in war, that life is worth protecting. Voytek never fired a shot. He never killed an enemy. He never planned a strategy or won a medal. But he carried shells when men were too tired to carry them. He stood beside them when they were afraid. He made them laugh when laughter seemed impossible. And that, in its own way, is heroism. So what do we take from this story? What lesson does a bear soldier teach us? Perhaps it is this, that in the darkest times, the smallest acts of care matter. That loyalty is not measured in rank or medals, but in presence. That sometimes survival is not about strength or strategy, but about finding something, anything, worth protecting. Voytek was that something for the men of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. And in return, they gave him a life he never would have had. The story of Voytek is a story of war, yes, but is also a story of love, of unlikely friendships, of the strange, beautiful, heartbreaking ways that humans and animals find each other in the chaos. It is a story that reminds us that even in the worst of times, there is room for kindness. Even in the machinery of war, there is space for something gentle. And that is why we remember him. Not because he was a bear who went to war, but because he was a bear who reminded soldiers what they were fighting for. Not just land or freedom or victory, but the simple, stubborn belief that the world could still be good, that there was still something worth coming home to. Voytek never went home. Poland was lost to him, just as it was lost to the men who raised him. But he found a home in their hearts. and they found a home in his. That is the story of Voytek, the soldier bear of Poland, the bear who carried shells at Monte Cassino, the bear who became a symbol, a legend, a reminder that even in war, humanity endures. What do you like about this animal? Tell me your favorite animal war story I should talk about next. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video.